Good morning, drivers. Johnny, the economic trucker, calling you or making this video from somewhere in Ohio where it's all icy and cold. In this video, I want to talk about taxes, why we have taxes, and the Job Guarantee Program. So, one of the reasons why we as a society pay taxes is so that we can provision the government. That doesn't necessarily mean that our government needs our money, but what it needs is our resources. So, a long time ago, whenever we had the 13 colonies, Connecticut had Connecticut bucks, and Massachusetts had Massachusetts bucks, and Virginia had Virginia bucks. And the government needed the ammunition from Connecticut, from a business in Connecticut, and they needed uniforms where a company in Virginia were making uniforms and so on and so forth. But because each colony had its own currency, the government, the 13 colonies, the United States, could not get these resources. So what they did is they created a currency for the government, okay, so that everybody would be on the same page, and so that the federal government could pay the companies what they were asking in order to get the uniforms, the ammunition, the guns, and so on and so forth. So that, and also to drive the currency. That basically is driving the currency. So the federal government had to make some sort of a standardized way in which the United States operated, traded goods and services, so that the federal government, not needing the money but needing the resources, could buy those resources and provision itself. Okay, so that's the reason for taxes. Now, it follows then that if the federal government didn't do that, then the private sector or these businesses and these people would use their own currency to do their own trading, right? So therefore, they would have their own employment system. So it could be said that our federal government, by taxing the people, creates unemployment, right? You understand that? It creates unemployment. So therefore, in the theory, or the modern money theory perspective, the federal government is obliged, therefore, to take care of those people and hire those people that are unemployed, that the private sector cannot, for whatever reason, will not employ. Because the federal government is driving the currency through taxation, therefore it creates unemployment. Therefore, it's the government's obligation to hire those people, now at a living wage, right? Now, what does that do? Number one, it enables people to, if the private sector, for whatever reason, doesn't want to hire you, the federal government will hire you at a living wage. What that does is a lot of good things. Number one, it would be handled in such a way that would take care of the needs of the local community. The local community says it needs this or that, and the federal government would give the local community that resources, the money, and the local government would go out and buy and hire the people, right? Of course, there would be laws, and you'd have to show up to work every day and whatnot. It also helps, it helps people in the sense that if you're willing and able, there's always employment. And more important than that, in my perspective, in my viewpoint, is that it enables people to be mobile. They're not stuck in one place. They could go anywhere in the United States for gainful employment. Okay? And that's really important, because a lot of people right now are not able to move. They're stuck where they're at because the company that they work for has benefits, healthcare benefits. Whereas if they number one, didn't have healthcare benefits through their company and had a job guarantee program, they could go anywhere in the country, find employment, and prosper. Okay, so that's really important. That's one of the big selling points on the job guarantee program, that it enables people to be mobile. And also, the job guarantee program also raises the standard of living of everybody, because if you have a national minimum wage, a living wage, therefore the private sector would have to match that wage, and therefore raise the standard of living of every individual, whether you work for the private sector or the government, whatever, and then we could prosper. That's another big thing. Now, a lot of people talk about the universal basic income, and I don't think that's a good idea, because all that is giving money away. You don't get anything out of that, you just get money, right? And we know for the last 30 years, there's been a sucking up of our our resources, our money is going to the top 1%. So universal basic income would always inevitably end up in the 1%, and not the 99% down here. Whereas a job guarantee program, you get something for it. The federal government's paying people money to do work, to be productive in society. Okay, with a universal basic income, whether you work or not, it doesn't matter. You just got money, and that's not a good thing. We want people to be productive. Okay, so there are some people that talk about a combination of the two, the IBU and the JG, Job Guarantee Program. I'm very much in favor of what modern money theory, the UMKC professors have been talking about, the Job Guarantee Program. All right, so if you look at it in that perspective, the idea that the federal government creates unemployment for the simple reason that it requires the people in that government to pay a tax, then you can clearly see where it is obligation of the government, if the private sector is either willing or unable to hire, that the federal government would hire at a living wage. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Now you're not really mind so much paying the tax or being taxed, because you know that the federal government at the end of the day has got your back, and you'll be able to have gainful employment. Now, it's also been said about the Job Guarantee Program that it provides the private sector a buffer stock of employees to choose from. Okay, so that's another perspective that JG is giving the private sector. Listen, I understand that you don't want to hire a person that hadn't worked for over a year or 2 years. That's quite understandable. But with the JG, you could pick and choose from people who have been working for 6 months, a year, 2 years in this program, and that are, show up to work, they have a record, so on and so forth. And employers are much more receptive to hiring people like that than otherwise. So you see that the fact that the federal government taxes its people obligates them, therefore, to hire them whenever the private sector is either unable or unwilling. The Job Guarantee Program lifts the boats and raises the prosperity and the standard of living of everybody. So in this video, Dr. Pavlina Cherneva is going to talk a little bit about the concept of the Job Guarantee Program and the benefits of the Job Guarantee Program and the framing, how we frame this. Okay, again, this is really important as truck drivers across the nation and people, that we spread this information out. This is Keynesianism. Okay, this is what this is, and it works. It worked very good in the mid-40s all the way up to the end of the 1960s. I mean, people were freaking really prospering at that time until the monetarists came in the late 70s. The oil shock actually was what started it, and for whatever reason, the powers that be controlling the economy at that time didn't respond properly. Dr. Bill Mitchell, in his book Reclaiming the State, would say that the workings on how the neoliberals took over the power in Washington and the economics department was very instrumental in changing from Keynesianism to monetarism, and that wasn't something that the Keynesians actually made a mistake on, but rather that the monetarists took advantage of, and not only here in the United States but around the world. So that today, 30 years later, we have higher income inequality, not only here in the United States but everywhere around the world. Neoliberals are taking hold, and they're not going to let go. The only way we change this is if we together as a nation understand, first of all, the power we have with our currency, and understand economics a little bit more thoroughly, a little bit better, and be advocates for it and fight for it. So the goal, again, is for free and fair elections through an amendment to the Constitution that will require that, number one, we match dollar for dollar the wealthy's campaign contributions. Number two, that we use blockchain so that we can have a true accounting of the vote, right? And we understand that once we get there, we have a lot more better chance of taking care of those things that we so desperately need to take care of, like our environment, and the global warming problem, and many, many other things. So please continue to advocate modern money theory. And again, I ask you, if you're interested in helping me, in this fight across the country, giving a 10-minute class on the top of the hour on channel 15 on Modern Money Theory. Study it. Email me at truckersecon101@gmail.com. We could talk a little bit about the particulars on how to make these videos and how to give this 10-minute class presentation on the United States roads. And lastly, again, this is not about starting a union. I'm not interested in starting a union. I don't want to start a union. This is not about that. We understand that there's no power in unions. We're going to where the power really is, and that is in our back pockets, our money. Okay? So thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, tell all your friends, and hang in there, guys. Thank you.